back to the STLK in the UTA Cougars podcast. I'm Paul, joined by Steve. Packed show today. We have women's soccer that wrapped up. We have some football, I wouldn't say movement, but a little bit of buzz. And we have a really exciting basketball team. The girls lose to Stanford in the Final Four, 2-0. I didn't watch the game, just saw it on Twitter. Shout out to the girls. That's really impressive to go that far. I think it's the second time in 3 years. Before we jump into basketball, though, I know you have a little bit of football to talk about. Let's jump into it.
Shout out to the women's soccer team. They had a great season. I think they were the better team. Unfortunately, they lost to Stanford. They had up 2 goals early. I don't remember the exact numbers, but they had way more shots on goal than Stanford
I think
did.
it was 9-3.
Yeah, they just didn't get as lucky, it seemed. So great season by the BYU women's soccer team. Shout out to them. A couple football things I want to go over. I mentioned last week we'll probably see a lot of activity in the transfer portal. Frankly, I've been pleasantly surprised with how few players are leaving the program.
The lack of buzz is promising.
Right, the transfer portal window opened Monday at midnight. I expected, a dozen or so names to go in. So far, we've only seen 4. Austin Riggs, long snapper, which is kind of curious.
Yeah.
He seemed like a BYU guy.
Yeah.
They interviewed him after that one game when he had the big hit and the fumble recovery, I believe. He's a graduate transfer. He'll have 1 year left. And then a couple of guys on that D-line, Michael Daly, as well as his brother, John Henry Daly. And so just no real big names entering the transfer portal, which I think is probably a good thing for this team.
Yeah, it's a really good thing, especially with the quarterback uncertainty we have. You would expect maybe, just maybe, Red Slav to make some noise and maybe explore his options, because BYU obviously hasn't committed to him long term, but he hasn't even done that. So again, did they say, hey, you're staying around for a long time? Did they not? The lack of buzz is promising, though. I like it.
I think it's a good thing. The less activity, I think, for BYU in the portal is probably a good thing this year.
Yeah.
A lot of big names actually in the portal from the quarterback ranks. Ohio State's starting quarterback, I guess he's not pleased with going to the New Year's Six Bowl. He wanted to be in the playoff. Yeah, he's out. We see Oklahoma's quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, wants out of Oklahoma, which is interesting. And maybe these guys are, maybe it's like at work, right? You go in and you tell your boss you're looking elsewhere, and they maybe pony up some extra cash to keep you around if they like you. And I mean, in the NIL sphere that we live in now, this is a possibility that guys are testing the waters just to go back and get a couple extra $100,000. From what I hear, the going rate for a starting quarterback at the P5 level is between $1 million and $2 million for a year, and so these guys are going out and getting paid, and so it'll be interesting to see exactly how it shakes out. But we also have 2 big names back. Maybe we saw on the D-line, Tyler Batty is coming back for his senior season, which I think is a great thing. He ended up as an All-Big 12 second-team performer. I think one of the better players on the defense. He was a captain of the team, and so a leader, I think, to have in the locker room will be helpful. And then his counterpart, who had some injuries this year, didn't see all the playing time that he wanted, but a big body, an NFL-type body, in Isaiah Banya, also coming back. So the DN should be locked down for next year.
Which is really good, because I always feel like that's the weakest point going into a football season is our defensive line. And maybe it's just because we didn't rush a lot in the past, but to see those guys come back has me already excited for next year.
And hopefully we can improve from being 130th in the nation in sacks. Yeah. We did blitz a lot more this year with Jay Hill than we did in years past with Tuyaki, but for whatever reason, I guess we didn't have the pass rush talent.
We were 130th? How many FBS teams?
I believe there's 130. No, I think there's 133 now.
Oh, cool. So we weren't dead last.
We were not dead last.
That's cool.
We're right there. And so, guys like, I know Jan Jorgensen has been involved with the team. I don't know his exact role, whether he's an analyst, but he might still have the Mountain West record for sacks. And so, imagine BYU if they could get a pass rush. They had a good defense this year with a poor offense and with almost no pass rush. So it might be fun to see. As I mentioned, the All-Big 12 teams came out. Unfortunately, BYU did not get anybody on the first team, which, given their conference record, was probably fair. A couple guys made the second team. I already mentioned Tyler Batty. Kingsley, our left tackle, who's, I'm guessing, not coming back to BYU. He also made second team All-Big 12.
Are you saying NFL draft for him?
I would assume so. Okay. I would assume so.
Fun story about him.
Let's hear it.
I was a senior at Orem High School.
He's a Tiger. He's an Orem Tiger.
He's an Orem Tiger when he was a freshman. And I used to radio broadcast those games when I was a senior. And he was by far and away the best offensive lineman we had.
As a 14-year-old?
Legitimately, I think he was 13 when the season started. We had other D1 offensive linemen on that team as well. Cole Watts, he played at Nevada, Dixie State, different places. Kingsley was by far the best, and he dominated those games. So when I'm like, oh, he's not coming back for sure. He's going to go to the league. It's been since he was 13. I was like, yeah, this guy's going to the league.
Yeah, it's crazy to watch some of those guys starting as a freshman in high school. And I was watching Monday Night Football last night, and you see the quarterback out of Washington. I'm blanking on his name now, but he broke every
Browning. Jake Browning.
Jake Browning. Thank you. he broke like every record in high school in California.
Yeah.
He threw 91 touchdowns his senior season after starting 4 years in a row. And it's just, some of these guys are just, they come up so fast. And I don't know. Yeah, it sounds like Kingsley was one of them. So,
Browning, the last time he started and won a game was 3 months after I graduated high school. For those who don't know, I'm in high school. That was over 6 years ago, which is crazy. It was 2018, but obviously that goes to show the talent in the league. Let's jump to basketball if you're ready. You got more on football.
Yeah, just let me finish up.
Yeah.
So all Big 12 second team. I mentioned the punter, Ryan Rico. Good for him. We had a few honorable mentions as well. We had Camden Garrett, Eddie Hecker, Darius Lassiter, who made some really impressive
Jacob
catches.
Robinson was on that list.
Jacob Robinson was there, as well as Isaac Rex, Max Tooley, and Paul Miley. So nice to see a couple of those guys get a little bit of a shout out. Obviously, I don't think any of them had the season that we wanted to in football.
No.
But we'll have an exciting offseason, and we'll be ready to get our hopes up again next August.
I didn't see the full Big 12 honorable mention list, but I feel like BYU probably had more players than the average team did. A lot of guys that were on the fringes, probably.
Different conferences do it different ways. Like sometimes they go off your ranking in conference. So I think that's why BYU probably didn't get any first teams because they finished so low in the conference. But then maybe they make that up by giving them extra honorable mentions. I'm not sure exactly how it worked, but yeah, some of the guys got a special little shout out there. Which is cool.
lot of defensive players, which is cool. Obviously, not a lot of offensive players from this last year.
Let's talk hoops.
Let's do it. So BYU game tonight. You're going to be there with your 2 kids, which is exciting. You've more than 2 kids. Just want to make that clear with your 2 boys. BYU is number 2 in net rating. For those who don't know what that is, let me check the exact definition. I had it written down.
Well, it's points per it's offensive efficiency per 100 possessions minus defensive combined with defensive efficiency, and BYU is number 2 overall in the net.
Yeah, so it's the NCAA evaluation tool. Right. Which is a really cool thing because people think net and they just like, plus minus that.
But this is what the NCAA uses as they field
that was my next point.
Yeah.
So BYU's number 2. So essentially the tournament starts tomorrow. BYU's a 1 seed going into this, which I never thought I'd say those words like without smiling. And I'm smiling, obviously, but we'll see if it holds. But they're number 2 right now in net. Number 8 in KenPom. For those who don't know what KenPom is, it's very similar to what you just said, where it's adjusted net ratings, a whole bunch of fancy numbers. But the KenPom, no team has won the national championship in the last 15 years without being rated in the top 10, at least for 2 weeks during the season in the KenPom. I know that sounds like a silly stat, but...
Yeah, I remember earlier in the season, in the preseason, that the coaches, Big 12 coaches, picked BYU to finish last in the conference. And I think all of us fans are like, okay, fair, our first year, we don't have the talent. But KenPom had us top 40 going into the year. And
I remember me and you talking about that. We're like, that's kind of weird.
What's going on with this calculation? Like, what are we not seeing? And anyway, KenPom is a great predictor.
Great predictor.
Number 8.
And like I said, it's very consistent that the team that wins the national title is in this KenPom somewhere in this range. The 14 at AP, don't love it. That's just people around the nation who write and blog and beat writers.
The voters.
And
they heavily bias towards the Blue Bloods and the big conferences.
And I'll be honest, no one's probably watched a BYU game of the AP voters aside from the San Diego State game.
Probably.
Which is fair. I mean, none of the games have been nationally televised aside from that and the Arizona State game. But 14 the AP poll. So BYU is getting a lot of recognition nationally. They're playing Evansville tonight, who's 7-1, I believe. Yep. Favored by over 20 points.
BYU's covered every game this year.
7-0.
We're 7-0 on our record, 7-0 against the spread. Yep. We're beating expectations every single week. I mean, I think they cover tonight at home in the Marriott Center. You look through their statistics. I was clicking through it today. You look at different statistics, and it's so fun to go to like any random category and look for a BYU player or the BYU team. And like most categories, BYU has a top player or the team is one of the top ranked things. I can run through a few of them here. Yeah, maybe you have a couple as well. But man, I tend to think that BYU can beat an Evansville team by more than 24 points, 25 points. Evansville, they have a good record, 7-1, like you said. They played one good team, Missouri State, and they got beat at home. They're actually ranked 200 plus in the KenPom, so we should absolutely handle this team. But let's talk about some of the stats that get us excited. 5th in the nation in assist to turnover ratio.
That's really important.
At nearly 2-1, they're 1.99. Last year they were under 1. So we talked about last week. We have a lot of the same players as last year. The roster is essentially the same, and we're that much better. I think this is one of the big ones. We're taking care of the ball and we're sharing the ball well.
So I think it was Rudy Williams was the only player we've missed out on since last year that played over 10 minutes per game.
Right.
He wasn't the best player in the world, obviously. I mean, he was a good player, but he wasn't the difference in between like not doing good in the WAC versus being the best team in the Big 12 or one of the best teams in the Big 12. This has to go back to coaching, right? Like, am I crazy to say Mark Pope has finally hit his stride as a Cougar coach?
No, I've been really impressed as Mark Pope as a coach. I honestly thought with the talent that we had last year, we overperformed. And that's kind of been a theme. More than anything, I've been a little bit underwhelmed with the recruiting.
Yeah.
Right. Just Mark Pope's personality and the style that he has. My wife loves Mark Pope and his wife. She just listened to some podcasts with them. Mm-hmm. He's a really charismatic and he seems like he'd be a great guy to play for. And it just doesn't seem like we've landed a lot of the big recruits. Now, we did get Dallin Hall. We have Colin Chandler coming off a mission. There are some big names in the pipeline, but I honestly believe that Mark Pope is an excellent coach. And I think he has his guys overperforming because of his ability to coach them up.
Yeah. So here's a fun stat for tonight, especially on BYU covering the spread. BYU is 6th in the nation on points scored percentage-wise off of three-pointers. Evansville allows the 16th highest percentage of points off of three-pointers. They're going to be shooting the ball a lot tonight.
It should be raining threes tonight.
Yeah,
Actually, the same stat. Interesting. Yeah. Percentage of points from three. Looks like we're clipping about 42% of our points from three-pointer. And another difference to last year. Last year we were about 30%. So, yeah, getting more points from the arc. Another one I saw was 6th in points per game, which makes the team really exciting and fun to watch.
Yeah.
Now, I think some of these numbers, as we get into conference play, are obviously going to drop because the level of competition will be increased. But last year, we only averaged 74 points a game. This year, we're averaging more than 17 points more per game. And after points per game, the next one you go to is the scoring margin. Points for versus points against. We are number 1 in the country in scoring margin, really? Outscoring our opponents by nearly 32 points a game.
That's a lot of points. I guess we already touched on this, but I texted you last night. I didn't want your answer until we started recording. But like I said, and like you said, it's the exact same team we had last year. There's a night and day difference. Last year, it was like pulling teeth for myself to turn a game on. And now it's like I'm scheduling my life around this team. Do you think it's coaching? Is there anything else that goes into this? Like, I'm just, even as like a former basketball player, I'm like, does coaching make that big of a difference where you go from like not a great team in the WAC to what we're doing? Like, what do you think it is? Is there anything else that can contribute to it?
There's nothing that specifically that jumps out to me. I think coaching's a huge portion of it. You talked about it last week, the players playing within themselves rather than trying to do more than they can. I think about a guy like Trevin Nell, who ended up injured early on last year and didn't play the majority of the season, who I believe is top 20 in the country in three-point percentage, something like that.
Yeah.
And a guy like that really can open up the floor. And I think it's the combination of our hot start from the three-point line opening up the floor for slashing, for cutting, for our inside players like Foose. Obviously, we've seen guys make massive jumps. Dallin Hall has played really well. We have, help me out, the big guy, number 0. Noah Waterman.
Waterman. Man, he's
turning
player.
into the player we thought he could be coming into the season. A couple other things. BYU is rebounding at an incredible clip. Number 5 in the nation in defensive rebounding at 30.1 rebounds
Evansville
a game.
is 332nd, by the way, which is goes into Steve Slate, which we're going to hit on.
We're going to hit on my Slate here in a little bit. But last year, they're only at 24.5 rebounds a game. And so there's 6 extra possessions right there from that alone that BYU is getting this year when it comes to rebounding. We've talked about the gang rebound mentality on defensive rebounds. Coach Pope wants 5 players in the paint to rebound the ball. So that's something that we could look for tonight.
It looks like it's been working. Like when you watch the games, like, wow, that's gang rebounding.
Well, and it's not only the position of the players, but it's so much of rebounding. And you know this as a basketball player is just the desire and the want and going up and getting the ball in traffic. It's scary, right? It's nervous. You watch your ankles. You go up and you can get undercut and whatnot. But it seems like this team has bought into when that ball comes off the rim, it is our ball and we're going to get it.
So one of my buddies is a Division II basketball player, and he's 6'3", maybe on a good day. He's the second shortest player on his team. And he's averaging over 5 rebounds a game. And I was talking to him the other night, and I was like, is this, like, is the ball just bouncing to you? Because last year he averaged, I think, 1.5. And I was like, is the ball bouncing to you? Like, what's going on? He's like, I'll be honest, just like you said. I just go get the ball now. Like, in the past, I just kind of stood back. But it just like BYU, like, they're just like, yeah, I'll just decide to go get the ball now. And it's a lot easier once you decide, like, okay, I'm going to go get the ball every time. And it clearly works because, like, offensive players, they're not diving in there. They want to get back.
Right.
When you really put your mind to it, you can get a lot of defensive rebounds. I have a question for you. BYU has 3 active players right now that have had a 3-pointer every game of the season. I'll tell you one of them.
7 straight games?
7 straight games. I'll tell you one of them. Spencer Johnson's on a 14-game streak, dating back to the last 7 games of last year. And he has won every game this season.
Well, and interestingly, Spencer Johnson is one of the poorer percentage 3-point shooters on the team. He must
put
just
him
have,
up.
Yeah, he gets a few up.
Can you guess the other 2?
Trevin Nell.
Yes.
I want to say Waterman, but he only had like 5 points last game. He kind of had a tough game on offense. Jacob Robinson, not Jacob, Jackson Robinson.
Jackson Robinson.
Is that right?
Yes. Jacob is not on the list, but Jackson is. So that's very cool. Good. That's great.
Well, I will say he had a stretch. So BYU played at the Delta Center on Saturday night.
Yeah.
I went with my wife. I was there with my wife and parents. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I've been to that game almost every year since they started doing it. Sometimes we played Utah there. Sometimes we played Weber State. They were doing like an in-state little tournament for a while. But I've been to a lot of the games when BYU plays at the Delta Center, and it's usually like lower bowl, maybe 40, 50% full. Upper bowl, there's like 100 people up there.
Yeah.
This game, the entire lower bowl was
saw
sold.
that.
Did you see that on TV?
That was incredible.
Good.
That was awesome.
It was like 95% full in the lower bowl. The upper bowl had thousands of fans.
Yeah.
The Rock was behind the one basket, and it went all the way up the lower bowl and like at least 2/3 up the upper bowl.
Yes, I didn't expect that.
And so there's a lot of excitement around this team. It was a fun game. BYU got off to a good start. The reason I brought this up, Jackson Robinson had like 8 points in a row or something. It was just like heat check every time down.
Did it
he
get
was
pretty
hitting
loud in there?
It was awesome.
Yeah, it sounded loud.
A really fun environment. I think the players enjoy playing there. They get to go sit in the Jazz locker room, the NBA locker room.
That's cool.
It's a different vibe being in an NBA arena. And man, that was a fun game on Saturday night at the Delta Center. And Jacob Robinson had a great song. So yeah, I guess those three guys: Trevin, Jackson. I keep saying Jacob.
You're good.
Jackson and Spencer Johnson.
Yeah, those are the three, and I expect that streak to continue tonight. I'm going to jump into Steve Slate. For those who haven't watched the BYU pod, you've only watched the Jazz or vice versa. On each pod, we try to do something like this, which is fun. We have Conjo's card on the Jazz. We have Steve Slate here. I really need to get myself guessing on some of these. But I'm going to give Steve 5 props. In fact, full transparency, you gave these to me. So I have a feeling you know if you're going to go over or under. But let's start with the first one. This is not a BYU player. Help me out on this last name here. Ben Humruchis?
I don't know his name now. I assume I'll know it after tonight.
Yeah.
He's top 100 in the country in scoring.
Oh, wow. How many does he average per game?
18.5 points a game.
Okay. You have his line set at 15.5. Are you going over or under?
15.5 points. I'm going to go over.
Okay.
I'm going to guess that Ben comes into a raucous environment, has a good game. I'm also going to guess that BYU goes up big early, and he ends up, BYU plays really, really well and hard in the first half. We go up by, let's say, 20 points in the first half, and we kind of die off at the end, and it turns into guys stop playing defense.
Yeah.
I think he'll grab some points. So I'm going to go over 15.5 points for Ben Humruchis.
I hope we're saying that right. Ben, if you're watching this, I apologize. Evansville 3-point percentage. I know we touched on this with all the stats. Over or under 30.5%.
So on the year, they're shooting 36%, which is pretty good, frankly.
Yeah, that's really good.
BYU is third in the country in 3-point defense, allowing just 23%.
Wow.
Now, they get into a raucous environment for at least a half. They're shooting into the rock 30%. I'm going under 30% in 3-point percentage for Evansville. I think they're going to shoot a lot of threes because they don't have the athleticism on the wing to get the ball inside. So they're going to end up jacking up a lot of bad shots. Under 30%.
Okay, I like this. Trevin Nell, this is a fun one. Over or under 2.5 3-pointers made.
We just talked about he's made one every game, so he's getting one at least. He's 41st. There it is. 41st in the country in 3-point percentage at 44.5%.
Jeez, man. That's a really high clip.
That's really, really good. For the record, Jackson Robinson's right behind him, 43.8%. That's good for 46th in the country.
Yeah.
Trevenell, 2.5 3-pointers made. I'm going to go over. Let's give him 3.
With these picks, it sounds like BYU's really going to cover the spread. I
Man,
mean, if
I
these
think
three
so.
play out, the Jazz, or excuse me,
I
the
think some
Cougars
people
are covering.
they see the University of Evansville and they see their record 7-1 and think, "Oh, this is a good team. BYU, watch out." And sure, it could be a trap game. I just don't see that happening this early in the season. And like I said, Ken Palm 200 plus, so I think BYU handles them.
Spencer Johnson, over or under? Actually, tell me this before I even tell the number. How many assists is Spencer averaging? Do you know?
He's averaging 4.5 per game, which is good for top 40 in the country.
Wow, that's actually really good. Over or under 6.5 tonight? That's a high line. Do you want to lower that to 5.5? Because I feel like you're taking the under here if it's 6.5.
If it's 6.5,
you're hammering the under. You know what I'm going to do, Steve? I'm really going to mess you up here. I'm going 5 flat.
Oof.
If he hits 5, you're dead either way. You can go under, you can go over. Which one are you taking?
Spencer Johnson 5. He's averaging 4.5 a game. Like I said, I think BYU scores a lot tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he had the game of his life on Saturday night. He had a career high. It was just making everything from all 3 levels. Maybe he looks tonight to be more of a distributor after that.
How many minutes do you think he plays tonight? I mean, we get up 18 in the first half. I can't see Spencer playing more than 8 minutes in the second half.
Yeah, maybe 25 minutes for the game. The line's at 5. Let's go over for fun.
Okay,
Spencer Johnson gets 6
He's
assists.
getting 6. I like that. That's fun. I'm going to personally take the under, and I'll be texting you all night about it. So like we said, Evansville, 332nd in the nation in offensive rebounding. BYU was number 5 in defensive rebounding. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. Top 10.
Top 10. Rebounding margin. BYU, plus 15. over or under that number.
So interesting. Evansville actually has a player from American Fork.
I was going to touch on that.
Were you going to mention that?
Yeah,
he's
okay.
actually
Take it away.
His name's Tanner Cuff. You know him better than I do.
Yeah, I played with him in the summer for a little bit, going into I think our sophomore year,
and I believe
maybe junior.
I believe his dad coaches.
Currently coaches at American Fork, who actually has a really good team this year. Anyway, Tanner grew up in St. George, went to Dixie High School. Him and his family moved up to American Fork his junior and senior year. This is a fun story. State tournament his junior year, when they won it actually with Isaac Johnson, who plays now at Utah State. Their starting five plus their two rotation players foul out against Davis. The only player that played significant minutes is Tanner Cuff in this game. In double overtime, he just takes over the game. Like, I looked to my buddy that I'm there with him, like, I didn't know he could do this. Like, he put on a performance. I'm talking, I think he almost had a triple-double that game, at least 15 points in the two overtimes combined. The kid can ball. Yeah. So, yeah, BYU plays him tonight. It's exciting.
Yeah, so he went to Slick and then somehow ended up at University of Evansville.
Where is Evansville?
It is in southwest Indiana. So It's kind of in this pocket between Kentucky and Illinois.
Gotcha.
In a city called Evansville, I think.
I would assume so, yeah.
So Tanner Clough goes to Slick and then to Evansville. He leads their team in rebounding, which is interesting. He's listed as a guard at 6'6", which is a good size for a guard in college.
6'6". He's strong.
And he leads the team in rebounding and assists, actually. He's rebounding at a clip of 5.5 per game. Mm-hmm. As we mentioned, BYU is second in the country. I don't know if I mentioned this. BYU is second in the country in rebounding margin at plus 16 per game. We're getting 45 rebounds to the opponent's 29. Plus 15 rebounding. I think BYU's size and athleticism and want, at least in the first half when it's still close, gets us above 15.
Okay, I like that. I like that as well.
The University of Evansville, we mentioned Southwest Indiana. I'm looking at a map in my mind. Southwest Indiana, established in 1854. It's a private university. It's pretty old university. They play in the Missouri Valley Conference, which is a decent basketball conference for lower tier teams. They have a very famous alumni that I think you would know. I'm gonna give you a couple clues, and we'll see if you can guess.
John Stockton.
John Stockton went to Gonzaga.
He did, huh?
This man played at the University of Evansville for their basketball program from 1962 to 1965. He's passed away like in the last couple of years.
Oh, wow.
He's an absolute icon in the state of Utah.
Oh, was he a biker? Was he biking when he passed away?
No.
Okay.
And I think who you're thinking of didn't actually pass away.
Okay, he did get paralyzed, though.
Yes.
Man, bad moment for me there. Trying to think.
He's a legendary coach in the state.
This is embarrassing, isn't it?
He coached your favorite NBA team for like decades.
The Utah Jazz.
Yeah. His name's Jerry.
Oh, no way. Jerry
Sloan.
played there.
Jerry Sloan played at the University
him.
of Evansville. Isn't that crazy?
That was almost too obvious. That was great. Good for Jerry.
So anyway, that's a little tidbit that you can know about the University of Evansville. They're called the Purple Aces, and the credit for their mascot or their nickname comes from the Louisville coach. Way back in the mid-1920s, Louisville played Evansville, and after the game, the Louisville coach said, "You didn't have 4 aces up your sleeve, you had 5."
Wow, because the 5 starters.
And they were called the Pioneers, and then they became the Aces, and then they threw purple in there. Their mascot is Ace Purple. He's a riverboat gambler.
Is he a live mascot by chance? I know both of our...
I love my live mascots. He's not. He looks like he's like a big-headed guy.
Okay,
you know?
it's a human behind there.
It's like, it's a human in there, but kind of a unique mascot there, the Aces.
That's awesome. So I have one question for you. We were going to do a likability draft today. I think we're running short on time, so we're going to skip the likability draft. And I just have a point-blank question. Is this the most likable / watchable team since Jimmer Fredette?
It was so fun to watch Jimmer. I was in high school when Jimmer played.
I almost feel like it's an insult to Jimmer saying that this seems close because Jimmer was different.
Jimmer was different.
Here's the thing. BYU started 6-0 in 2021. I don't remember this much buzz around it, though.
In 2021, the year after COVID, they were 6-0? Wow, I don't remember that.
It was either 2021 or 2022. One of those years.
Well, 2020, they had a team. They had a stacked team. Jake Toulson.
Mika,
he would have been on my likability poll.
Yeah.
I love Jake Toulson. Is this the most likable team? Maybe.
Watchable, at least? Probably,
it's
right?
so fun to watch them.
Like, they play so hard. When Saunders comes in with his headband and he's just flying, man, he's everywhere. I can't take my eyes off the screen.
Well, and it's like last year I felt like Saunders really stood out because he was everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
But this year, like a lot of guys play that style.
Yes.
And I don't think they're like glue guys and that like they're diving at every ball, but they just play hard and they have heart and they hustle. And it's so fun to watch. And we went to the game, my wife and I, to the Delta Center, like I mentioned, and there was a specific player that I won't mention. She's like, I don't know how I feel about him. And by the end of the day, she's like, that might be my favorite player.
Really?
She loves defense. She
Will
loves
you tell
rebounding.
us who it is? Or is that throwing your wife under the bus?
I'll throw her under the bus. It's fine. Spencer Johnson. She's like, I don't know how I feel about him. I'm like, really? She hasn't watched a ton of games this year. I literally said to her, I said, I think you're going to like him by the end of tonight.
I think
he has a career. He probably heard her. We're on like the 5th row.
Yeah.
He probably heard her. He had a career night. He's shooting lights out. He plays so hard. He plays the right way. Impressed with his team. Most watchable, it's hard to say.
Yeah, it's really subjective, isn't it?
It is a subjective metric, but they are very, very fun to watch because they play the game the right way, the way you'd want a team to play.
Especially with a team that doesn't have like the one guy who can just like go dominate a game, get 25. Like this is exactly how you play if you don't have that guy.
And that's what's exciting is, some of the years you're like, okay, if we lose this player, then our season's over.
Yeah.
Right. Or if we lose this player, we're not making the tournament or we're bounced the first round. It doesn't seem like BYU has a core of great players. And I mean, Atiki can be ejected for a game and we're fine.
Yeah.
Right. And who knows? Maybe, Trevor Nell was injured last year. Maybe we have a guy that comes up injured this year. I honestly feel like we'll be okay. Noah Waterman did not have a good game Saturday night. We still win by 30. And so it seems like we have that core of players. We don't rely on one guy. And even like, we're one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the nation. Here, inevitably, we're going to come up upon a game where we don't shoot the ball well.
Yeah.
And I really don't worry that much because we rebound well and we play defense hard and we do things the right way. So very fun team to watch.
That's the thing. We're shooting the ball really well. I saw this metric on TikTok, actually. I wish I could give the guy credit. I forgot his name. But it was like a quadrant of the best 3-point shooting teams in the nation. Not only the best, but the ones that do it at an efficiency that's sustainable. And BYU was up there, which is really cool. But to your point, it's not just the 3-point shooting. Like we're doing everything else good, where if we do have a bad 3-point shooting night, sure, maybe we don't win by 30, but we're going to win the game. We might not cover the spread. Some people might not like that, but we're going to win the game, which is really encouraging. Like we have to fail in multiple facets of the game, or at least it feels like right now because they're undefeated, but we have to like fail in multiple spots to lose the game. And I just can't see that happening very soon, at least.
Yeah, we said a few weeks ago, BYU has a real chance of being 13-0 going into the Big 12. If we are 13-0, that means we beat Utah.
I was going to say we haven't touched on Utah once.
So we play Utah this weekend, Saturday. It's kind of an early evening.
Is that Delta Center?
5 p.m. No, it's at the Huntsman.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody should go. There's still tickets available. Utah fans, for whatever reason, don't support their team. There's $10 general admission tickets available. Everybody should be there. I'll be there. Date night for us. And it's going to be a tough matchup.
Yeah.
We talked about it. Utah's got a good team. They start 2 7-footers. They got a lot of size. Who knows? Maybe they play well. Their crowd gets into it. But so if BYU goes 13-0, we've beaten Utah. We beat Wyoming at home, which Wyoming's not like the best team, but they're a recognizable team. I think we're top 8 AP.
I think so.
We're probably maintaining top 5 in Ken Palm and net. So going into the Big 12, man, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be crazy.
I'm really excited to have Kansas in Provo.
It's gonna be crazy.
Sweet.
Texas comes here. Houston comes here.
I'm really excited about Houston. Houston's a tough team, man. They always have a good team.
Top 2 net teams are Cougars this year so far. Houston and BYU Cougars.
This is a new thing we're doing. I wanted to throw it at you. I wanted to do it with Conjo. Conjo doesn't have any kids. I don't know if people knew that or not. You have 4? 3?
4 children.
4 children. I have 1. I got this from Bill Simmons, who I just love. I'm not sure if you listen to his pod. They do a parent corner at the end of every podcast. And it's not long. It's a couple minutes. It's just sharing like a little tidbit of parenting the last week. Whether it's a funny thing, dumb thing that happened, just an experience that happens when you have kids and a wife. I want you to go first.
I'll go. I'm taking my 2 boys to the game tonight. We've talked about it before. It is Cole's birthday day tomorrow. They had a game tonight, so I decided to take him, and Todd wanted to come along, my other son. But one of the most gratifying things right now for me is to watch Cole get into football.
Yeah? How old's Cole?
Cole is 7.
Oh, that's a good
Which
age.
is crazy. Yeah. Time goes so fast. I remember, sitting in your chair just a couple years ago, having my first son and being like, man, time goes fast. But he's getting so into football. He's asking these questions like, what's the black line on the screen? I say, that's the line of scrimmage. And he's like, well, I thought it was blue last game. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, sometimes they change it up, And he's like, what's this line for? And, how many points is a field goal worth? And he's asking questions about, he's like, Dad, I thought the Jaguars were a bad team. And I said, no, they're actually ranked number 1 in the AFC before they lost last night. And anyway, it's just super gratifying. Like the things that I love and invested probably too much into, that to watch my son start to really reflect those things and be excited about those things. And I just can't wait for the bond that we'll have, going to these BYU basketball games, going to these BYU football games. I know so many fans out there do that. It's a family affair going to these games. And so it's really fun to go to the basketball games with my sons, with my wife, with my family, and just watch my kids grow up and love what I love. It's cool.
That's cool. Yeah. I like that one. My wife traveled to Europe for a full week. I have a 1.5
without you?
Without me.
Girls trip?
Yeah, she went with her mother-in-law, a couple friends. I have a 1.5-year-old daughter. And it was just me and her for a week. Granted, I did abuse the grandparents on both sides a good amount. But man, there's nothing specific about the week that went wrong. But I'll tell you what, by day 4, it felt like I was drowning without a life jacket. And it's just like the amount of diapers she has and like doing her hair every day, all this stuff. I was like, I don't know how the wives do it. Like it's impossible. So I travel for work. I'm gone for from a week to 3 weeks at a time. And like, I'm gone for 10 days. And I'm like, that was the quickest 10 days ever. She was gone for 3 days. And I'm like, how much longer? You want to change your flight? Like I started looking into it. I'm like, how much does a flight change cost? But yeah, that was a really humbling experience. It was really humbling. How
does she sleep?
Incredible.
Oh,
so
that's
she's
a
a
blessing.
cuddler when she sleeps. I guess not with me. Because I'd like lay her down and she's like moving away. She's like, I want to like let me go. So that was nice. I was able to set her down, play some Madden in the downtime. But man, a lot of energy goes into that. Didn't know it.
It's tough. And if there's one thing I can't do that I can't do as a parent that I got to figure out is doing a girl's hair. So
impossible.
When Maggie goes on these girls trips or these weekend trips with her sisters, like I can get everything done. It's tough. It's an uphill battle.
Yeah.
But like doing girls' hair, I like try to braid it and it's frizzy and
yeah. I'm like, you know what? Wearing a beanie all week. Like I got her a little Carhartt beanie and I was like, this is it. Yeah.
I bet she loved it too.
Yeah, it got really dirty, but I didn't have to do the hair. Anyway, that's been it. We're going to be back next week on the same feed. I believe it releases on Wednesday.
Go Cougs, beat the Utes.
Yeah, we're going to have an Evansville game, Utah game. We don't play again up until next week. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. That was fun.